Professor Syed Nadeem, our honorable guest, respected professors, fellow peers, and everyone present here. The Department of History, Presidency University, cordially welcomes you all to this special lecture, which also happens to be our first offline lecture after the pandemic. Today, we are very fortunate and extremely delighted to have with us Professor Syed Nadeem Rezavi, who will be speaking on the topic Taj Mahal or Tejo Mahalaya. Professor Rezavi teaches at the Center of Advanced Study, Department of History, Aligarh Muslim University. He has also been the chairman and the coordinator of the Center of Advanced Study in History, Aligarh Muslim University, and the coordinator of the Musa Dakri Museum at Aligarh Muslim University. He specializes in medieval Indian history, especially the Mughal period in India, urban and social history, history of classes, cultural history of medieval India, architecture, miniature paintings, and social relations, history of Indian Shiism, and historical and medieval Indian archaeology. He has published several books, around 5 catalogues, 8 review articles, and over 50 articles and chapters in various books. Some of his published works include Fatpur Sikri Revisited, History Through Archaeology, Tazkira-e-Pir Hasut-Ali of Surat Singh, Catalogue of the Archaeological Holdings of the Archaeological Section, and so on. He has also been the president of the Medieval India section of the Paschim Bango Itihas Shamshad in 2019, general president of the UP History Congress in 2018, and has held many other prestigious posts and has been a part of many national and international conferences over the years. We eagerly look forward to today's lecture. Without further delay, over to you, sir.
Friends, thank you for a very kind introduction. As all of you know that formal introductions are half-truths. They are just simple vacant words, nothing else. I will self-introduce myself only as a student of medieval Indian history. Anybody who actually reads and tries to learn always remains a student. So, you may be doing your graduation, I may be a professor, but all of us together are into studies, and that is more than enough. Right. When Mr. Dr. Salim invited me over, when he invited me over, I was coming to Kolkata for Yadavpur for a workshop, and Dr. Salim Javid had once upon a time worked under me at Aligarh, so he invited me over, and I could not refuse my former student. Number one, this I am saying to please him. The actual fact is that I did not want to miss the chance of meeting the students of history of Presidency University. All of you know that we are passing through very strange times. Since more than a decade, and specifically from 2014 onwards, our very existence is under threat. India has always been a very multicultural country with all type of religions, castes, creeds surviving over a period of time. Before I enter into the topic, let me also very briefly inform that the type of riots, the clash between religious communities which are happening today in the post-independent India never happened in the past. Although Christopher Bailey did write an article, very famous article, in which he tried to project the communal tensions back to the 17th century. But then, whatever we worked with the sources, we were able to, in fact, very respectfully counter his argument and pinpoint that it was actually during the colonial period in India that, riots as they are known today started taking place. Even in the period of Aurangzeb, there are two riots which are referred, two clashes which are referred. One in Delhi, the other in Gujarat. In Gujarat, what happened was that there was some agitation between a number of shopkeepers and the Mughal administration. The shopkeepers, the baniyas, were generally non-Muslims. The Mughal administration was, after all, the Mughal administration. It had a number of Muslim officials. Clash occurred, a number of people died. So it was pointed out, oh look here, it's under Aurangzeb that the two communities clashed with each other. But then you go and look at the documents of that period. What did the state do? Immediately, Aurangzeb's administration set up an inquiry, and mark you, the punishment was given to the officials and succor was provided to the traders. Right? So, in short, this was the situation which prevailed during the 17th century. It was only afterwards that the two communities started clashing with each other. You know what happened during the partition? Nothing is hidden. A number of people who died during the partition, that is one of the largest in the world, where, during the phase when the communities were moving from one place to another, some going from India to Pakistan, some coming from Pakistan to India. Lakhs of people, were massacred, died, disappeared. But then, after independence, the healing took place. I'm not talking about what happened in Pakistan, but as far as my country is concerned, the country where Ambedkar made the constitution, everyone was given full rights. As a citizen of India, you had all the rights. You might belong to any religion, any caste, any creed. In between, there were some clashes here and there. They did continue, but it was only limited to certain sections of the society. 2014 onwards, a concerted effort started being made to permanently, damage the relationship between the two communities. So much for that by the time that 2020 comes, what you find is that attempts are being made that you should forget there was something as medieval India is. Look at the type of textbooks which are now being cleaned of all references to communal living together, whether of ancient, whether of medieval or of modern period. All those references are, those chapters which show that we were all one, they are being removed one by one. And then, as you know, that from the highest echelons of our political administration, attempts first were made that how ancient India was so great. We knew surgery. Ganesha was a result of plastic surgery and so on and so forth. And thus started a process where history started being replaced with myth. Myth, as you know, is at the most a total lie or half-truth. Anything for which you cannot get a proper reference that it happened is a myth. It's not a history. Your belief, if it cannot be proved in any fashion, cannot be treated as history. That's a universal fact. But from 2014 onwards, the attempts to create myths were made, and then ultimately those myths which were being created are now being replaced in your history books. The history of India is now being presented only as a myth. Whatever we think, that is now being is going to be taught to. So in the past few months you must have heard about the Qutub controversy. You must have been hearing of what is happening in, for example, in Banaras. All of you know what happened at Ayodhya. One after the other, irrespective of what the primary sources tell us, attempts were being made. Unfortunately, today, the situation has reached to such an extent that even those whom we call as, within inverted intellectuals, even they are falling prey to this type of myth building. I mean, if you ask anybody, they are actually allowing the majority of us, possibly because we have stopped reading, consulting the sources, reading the history of our past, that whatever is circulated is the same, we try to accept it. All of you know that the building about which we are going to talk today is one of the most important structures of India. It has a heritage structure which brings in the largest number of tourists who come to India. I mean, one of the monuments which is in fact visited almost by 80% of the tourists who come to India, especially the VIPs who come to India. One of the estimates which was made is before you, around 8 billion visitors annually. They visited, and imagine the amount of revenues which is being collected only from this monument. if you are an Indian, you are paying a different rate. You won't understand the amount of revenue which is going from this old structure. I mean, if you are a foreigner, then you pay around 250 rupees for each visit, plus other taxes. So it's one of those buildings which are actually giving you an immense amount of money, revenues to the state. As I said that there is hardly any foreign visitor who might not have visited the Taj. In fact, even Modi ji, when people come to visit him, he takes them to the Taj. वहाँ तेजो महलिया की बात करें, people are taken there, and in fact, if I remember correctly, that even the replica of the Taj is presented to the revered guests, who in turn would be treating Modi ji with European gifts when he goes there. There are, two sides which are now parallel. It's very unfortunate that for a building which has been recorded to such an extent, we have to say that there are two type of things which go along with the name of Taj: history and myth, which is now being made. I remember that when I was your age, or in fact not your age, the age of your teacher, Salim Javi, I could not even imagine that someone would come and challenge the Taj. Why? Because not that it is an accepted fact by us, but because we have voluminous information regarding it. There's hardly any part of the Taj about which something or the other has not been recorded. So one could never expect that such a building, which has been recorded in every aspect from its foundations down to its culmination. Incidentally, let me tell you that before we proceed further, I'm sorry, I usually take much time in talking. So if you feel that much of your time is being wasted, there are two doors you can leave. I come from Aligarh, and in Aligarh there is a neighborhood known as Dodhpur. In fact, half of the civil lines of Aligarh is Dodhpur area. Most of the members of the University of Aligarh, they generally have their houses in Dodhpur. Dodhpur was a village during the Mughal period. Till last month, in the Taj Museum, there was a farman which was hanging on one of the walls. I don't know whether it is still there or it has now been removed. That entire village, the farman says, was allotted, the revenues of this Dodhpur was allotted for the maintenance of the Taj after its completion. So, from the inception, I'll be giving you the evidence of what type of documents exist as far as its creation was concerned. From that period up till the period when it was complete, each and every aspect is known, and why did the last slide come? One of the basic things, basic controversies. Taj, in spite of the fact that It is a well-documented building about which everything is recorded. But then, since you know, since its inception, at a time when even Shah Jahan himself was alive, he was very much alive. He was living in the fort. He was living there ultimately in the last 10 years of his life as a prisoner of Aurangzeb, but he was there. Now, during that period, even before Shah Jahan was imprisoned by Aurangzeb, in the reign when he was still in power, a large number of foreign visitors, travelers, they came to Agra. Some of them have also recorded their impressions about the building. I will first give you the impression of Francois Bernier. Possibly all of you would have heard the name of Bernier. A French intellectual, a French scientist, a French doctor who had been sent to the Mughal court by some of the French nobles. And he was supposed to, his whole trip was financed by the nobles. He came here and he was supposed to be reporting back to his nobles what he found in India. He served under Shah Jahan. During the reign of Shah Jahan, he came into contact with Prince Dara. So he joined the service of Prince Dara. He was very close to the imperial family. But when, after the War of Succession, Aurangzeb won, Bernier was forced to join the service of Aurangzeb. Right. So he is one of those who is a padha likha, real person who has knowledge, is a scientist, a real scientist, and who also practiced medicine, but is also writing on political aspects and so on and so forth. And he lived in India for quite some time. Once there was some other French citizen who came to Agra, and Francois Bernier took him for a round of Agra, in which this French traveler was also taken to the Taj. Remember that Taj is a restricted building during that period. It's not open. It's the Maqbara of the Empress of the king who is still alive. So it was not a tourist spot at that place. Sometimes, there are certain BJP people who ask, so many people came, why don't they give us the details of the Taj? They didn't see it. How could they see it? Has anyone of you gone to Agra? Have you seen, when you approach the Taj Mahal from Agra Fort, are you able to see the building from the habitation of Agra? No, because when you approach it, there are a number of courts and gates. It's only after crossing them and when you finally enter into the last gate, then you see the mountain. So all those who are visiting and not being allowed to come in, how are they going to see it and then report back to you what was happening there? Every newspaper says कि अरे उस period के लोग बताते नहीं हैं कुछ कैसे बताएंगे? They were not allowed inside. But Bernier is allowed to go in. So he takes his own, he is a privileged person, very close to the emperor and the crown prince. and the next person who became the king. At that time, Aurangzeb was not a terror for him. Later on, he became a terror when he became the emperor. But then, even as a terror, he had to join his service, and Aurangzeb became his master. So he had relations with all three of them. He took this pan, and when this French traveler saw the building, he remarked, I haven't seen such a monument in the entire Europe. Right? Nothing very special. I mean, all of us know that it's a remarkable building which is not found elsewhere. The importance is not that. The importance is what Bernier writes after mentioning this. He writes, when I heard my fellow traveler say these words, I was so happy. I used to think that my sense has been contaminated by the Indians. I like this building because I have become like them. Now that this person, Frenchman, fresh out of France, is also praising this, so I can say I am right that it's a beautiful building. Meaning thereby that these European travelers were not actually, giving the due respect to the building. They were not accepting that, and they were never expressing that it's actually a building which the Mughals could have made. A direct evidence is given by two other European travelers, Tavernier and another person, I'm forgetting his name, another traveler, whatever. One is an Italian traveler, one is a French traveler. In both their accounts, what you find is that they see the Taj from outside, they don't come in. But whatever they see, they claim that it is not built by any Indian. It is built by some European architect. How can Indians build it? How can they make such a building? Remember that Occident and the Orient, everything in the Orient is bad, static, they don't have any history. Karl Marx was also writing that. No history, nothing, no stratified society. It's ours, the Europeans who know everything. So, this building could never have been made by Shah Jahan or by his, architects. It is only by some European. I am once again forgetting the name of the European to whom, the building of the Taj was attributed by these people. One of the travelers gave one name, the other traveler gave another name. The common thing between both these names were that they both belonged to Europe. They were not Indians. Not only that, when 19th century, tourist books were being written in Persian and Urdu. Naturally, they were being written under the colonial masters. What do they mention about the Taj? The Taj was constructed by Ustad Isa, a European. Once again, even during the 19th century, in the books being written by the Indians, in Farsi and in Urdu, some of these writers are Hindus, some of these writers are Muslims, but in popular perception and in their writings, once again because they are influenced by what has been taught to them by their European masters, the creator of this building could never be an Indian. No other Mughal building is so beautiful as the Taj. You may also interpret it in that fashion. But he took it to mean that even that scholar, they always follow what the English would say. From Savarkar down to P.N.O., they would always quote the English as their authority. So he was cited and a full book was developed, and that was once again revived after such a long time. Attempts were made in between also, but they were never ever taken seriously. But it is, or for that matter, the building of Humayun's tomb. These are the two well-known buildings where the name of the architect is given. In the case of Humayun's tomb, we have the mention of Mirza Riaz, and in the case of Shah Jahanabad, the Qila at Delhi and the other buildings, the name of Ustad Ahmad and Ustad Hamid. That these are the two names who built all these buildings. There are a number of buildings, the Qila is there, other structures are there, but who built the Diwan-e-Aam, who built the other building, that's not mentioned, just a general reference, these are the two. In the case, generally in case of every building, the architect was generally referred to by excellent adjectives being used against the name. Instead of giving the name, oh, what a creator he was. Just like Aflatun, just like Aristotle. I mean, irrelevant names would be created and assigned to them, their actual names would not be given. Why? Possibly this was under the Indian influence, where during the ancient period in India, we find that the architect, the Memar, the actual builder, was having the status of a Shudra. Remember that once this Shudra, who was the Sutradhar, the architect, completed the temple, and the Abhishek of the temple was done. After the Abhishek, after the temple was actually opened up with the divine image, with the ceremony, official ceremony, that now it is a temple. You know much better than me how that temple Abhishek takes place. After that, the poor architect who had laid down each and every piece of stone there was now not allowed to enter into that building. So possibly this was the tradition under which we know, all the names of the physicians are given, names of other professions are given, but as far as the architects are concerned, they might be given high status, but they do not have such a status that their names should occur and they should be thanked. That's not done. In the case of Taj, there are two authentic references which tell us who had built it. Now there is a person known as Lutfullah Mohandis. Mohandis means engineer, or you may say geometrician, technically. He says in his book, Diwan-e-Mohandis, he was a versifier also. He says that it was my father, Ustad Ahmad, who was the architect of the Taj. No Mughal official source informs. Ustad Ahmad is mentioned, as I told you, in the context of Delhi, the buildings at Delhi. But as far as Taj is concerned, no references there. But here is a man who claims my father, Ustad Ahmad, was in charge. During Aurangzeb's period, there was another building which was made known as the Bibi Ka Maqbara in Aurangabad. And there is an inscription. And according to this inscription, the grandson of Ustad Ahmad, the son of Lutfullah, whose name was Rizqullah, was the architect of Bibi Ka Maqbara, and Bibi Ka Maqbara is a rough version of the Taj. Right? But then you might once again doubt, I can say anything about my father. Who stops me? So you may say that Lutfullah might be lying. He might not be telling the truth that he was the architect of this building. The other reference to the various people who actually built this monument during the period of Shah Jahan are the stones of the building itself. Each and every original piece of stone at the Taj and in almost all the Mughal monuments, they are inscribed not only with the names of the masons, the real architects, but along with their names, their symbols are also there. The person, Memar, who is building it, he would not only sign each piece of stone, possibly for payment, or might be for some other reason, but on each and every original piece of stone, there would be, his name would be carved. And as you can see, that all these names, except here, which we do not know whether they are names or not, but at least on the first page, you can find only the names. All the names are in Nagari, and all the names are of non-Muslims. They were the actual builders. Ustad Ahmad might have given the plan, but the actual execution of the building was carried out by the local masons. Remember also that till today, if you talk to any mason, the measurement which he would be giving would be in anguls. Itne angul ka hai. That pronunciation might differ from place to ungal, angul, angal. This is derived from the old texts of the ancient period which deal with the science of construction. That old knowledge continues. So if the tradition continues even today when your house is being made, that the measurement through which the architect is making remains the same as is there in the Vedic period, if we find certain architectural aspects which are also found in ancient period, don't be surprised. Number two, always remember Mughal architecture is nothing but an amalgamation of the previous traditions. If today you ask me, sir, please point out one architectural feature which is typically Mughal, I would answer you nil. There is not a single iota of architectural element which is exclusive to the Mughals. Something is derived from Central Asia, something is derived from Iran, something is derived from Malwa, the other thing is derived from Rajasthan, something comes from Gujarat, some comes from the Jain tradition, some come from the Buddhist traditions. You know that Shah Jahan's period is famous for its cusp arches. Arches which are not simple but having grooves like this. These are known as multifoliated cusp arches. And on the top you find a lotus bud. Today, when these people are claiming that possibly Taj Mahal is a temple structure, you go to the internet and find their sites, they will have these images of the gateways and arches of Taj with a red circle drawn against that lotus bud. That was a feature, sorry to say, not derived from Hindu architecture. There was nothing as Hindu architecture. It was derived from Buddhist architecture. Banister column, which you find under Shah Jahan, columns which are rounded, just like a citrus tree, a little fat from below and gets slimmer as they go in height. They are known as banister columns, again derived from Buddhist architecture. Cusp arches, once again derived from Buddhist architecture. You go and see the pedestals of the pillars. On that you have a decoration which would remind you of the stupa. So मेरे भाई अगर एट्रीब्यूट करना ही है तो उसको विहारा बना दो. It would still be logical because there are a number of features which are, but at least don't do this, right? So we know that this is a structure which was conceived by a Central Asian. Actual work was carried out by the so-called, within inverted commas, Hindu masons. And I had given the, this quotation of Mizia Bernier, which I just quoted. You can read it here, how he says that, I got confirmed that my views have not been contaminated by my stay in India. Okay, even a new fellow, if he, says so, that these are the names, of memory says Geronimo Verenio, Italian architect. Tavernier says a Frenchman. Austin of Bordeaux, 19th century Urdu Persian sources. Ustad Isa. And as I said, that a number of elements which actually belong to, as I said, that if you read the book of Begley, you read any book on the Taj Mahal, you read any book on Mughal architecture, you would find that Mughal architecture is drawing inspiration. Now there are two authorities on Mughal architecture. Ferguson. I think you have a college here also, Ferguson College, or in Bombay. Ferguson, Englishman. One of the authorities who wrote on Indian architecture. He praises Indian architecture like anything, praises Mughal architecture as anything. He's supposed to be a fan of Indian architecture. But then he writes that still the Greek and Roman architecture were much more developed than Indians could ever be. That feeling of European in him there. It's very good. Mughal architecture, no doubt, excellent. But हमारी बात है. E.B. Haven, the other person who is an authority on architecture, he also praises the Mughal architecture like anything. He praises the Taj like anything. But after praising it, he says that, this building could never have been made by the Mughals. it has many, architectural features which date back to ancient period. As you can see, there, drawn from one of the booklets. I'm not coming to this picture at the moment, but drawn. And he leaves it there. He doesn't go further. He just says that excellent building, but it has certain features which Mughals could never do. They are typical that they are found in ancient period. Full stop. You can now add further whatever you have. And the job was done by P&O. Illuminated. All of you must have heard the name of R.C. Majumdar, the original Hindu communal historian. When the RSS, approached R.C. Majumdar that please write an article for our journal, R.C. Majumdar very haughtily replied back that a journal which publishes the trash of such people as P&O, I can never give my article in that. And as I said, that R.C. Majumdar is an authentic, Hindu supremacist. But at least he was a historian. P.N. wrote his book in 1966. And in that he developed for the first time the theory that possibly this Taj Mahal was built at the place where once a temple existed. But he did not only talk about a temple. He was quite, as I said, a lunatic, a confused man. I'm sorry, I'm using these terms from here, but I have no other word for such people. He further on said that actually it is a temple mahal, palace cum temple. First he said that it is on the foundations of a temple that it was created. Then he said, no, actually the Taj is a combination of, basically a palace but having a temple also. Palace temple complex. Had he been alive today, I would have asked him, if I ever would have talked to him, that sir, can you please give me one single evidence of a palace temple complex anywhere in India? But it was he who gave this concept of Tejo Mahal. And this book, a very thin book, was actually rejected by all these scholars. Right and left both. It was not only that left scholars were, rejecting his work. In fact, even the right historians of the Hindu side, they never gave credence to this man. But he developed the theory that actually below the structure of the Taj, there was once a temple. Oblique, the whole structure has characteristics which are common with certain temples. Right? But it is now in 2021 for the first time that half the theory of even this P&O has been forgotten. Now it is no more that a temple was replaced. What is now being circulated is that the Taj itself is a creation of the Hindu kings. Only the mihrab was added to that and a new name was given to it, and actually no queen is buried within it. this is the new form which has been given to it. But as I said, that it was first the colonial historians of architecture in India who wrote one sentence. That whole sentence was then developed into a book by P.N.O., where he claimed that actually, because that person had said, you might also say that he was praising the structure, that no other Mughal building is so beautiful as the Taj. You may also interpret it that fashion. But he took it to mean that even that scholar, they always follow what the English would say. From Savarkar down to P.N.O., they would always quote the English as their authority. So he was cited and a full book was developed, and that was once again revived after such a long time. Attempts were made in between also, but they were never ever taken seriously. But it is once again now in 2022 that this theory in a new version, as all of you by now know, that COVID each year comes with a different strain, each stronger than the other. So this time, whatever has come is a new version of what had been going on for a long period of time. Now let me deal with, did Shah Jahan actually seize the property? One of the allegations which is being put forward is that actually Raja Jai Singh was forced to hand over his property to Shah Jahan to build the tomb. But just now you were saying that no empress was buried there. So it was not a tomb. But now you say that to have the tomb, a building was taken. Okay. There is a farman written by Shah Jahan asking Jai Singh that I want to build this structure, and this is a place which has been identified as the ideal spot. Your bagat are there. A Mughal garden would always have a haveli also, a structure also within it. So can you hand it over to me? And the Raja actually agreed. Evidence? There are a number of documents which survive in not only City Palace Museum, Jaipur, but also in Bikaner archives. The Raja accepted, and a property equivalent to 4 times the land on which the Taj was built was in fact assigned to Jai Singh. And then the construction work started. For the construction you need material. If there is no construction, if there was a palace, no material would be needed for that. Chota mota chahiye hoga for conservation or some changes. But if it's a new building, you need a lot of material. In Bikaner archives, there are 2 types of documents. Arsatta Imarati. Incidentally, the catalogue of the Arsatta Imarati has also been published, and it is available almost in all the libraries. They were published in 1950s, much before P.N.O. and others. So, Arsatta Imarati. Arsatta Imarati is a document which gives you the details of what was bought, what was the price on which it was bought, it was transported, so how was it transported? It is a record of sorts, dealing with the material. That is why it is known as Imarati. So there are documents of documents which tell us how not only the Makrana marble but also all the other stuff which was needed for the construction were provided from the area of Rajputana and transported to Agra. Each and every cost was also mentioned in various chittis, scripts. You can say receipts. Received so much money for such and such. It also survives in Bikaner archives. The claim is that at the time when construction was taking place, there is no document when was it constructed. It's there with you. It's in your official archives. Diya Rani, one of the successors of Jai Singh, did make a comment. We will come to that later on. Okay, let me come to it. Who was Jai Singh, from whom this land was purchased? Jai Singh was one of the most prominent nobles of Shah Jahan, one of the highest grandees of Shah Jahan. He was the ruler of Amer. He was one of the ancestors of Princess Diya Rani, the BJP MLA. But his introduction is not Diya Rani. The introduction is that he was not only the grandee of the empire, but a person who took active part in the War of Succession. First, he took part along with Shah Jahan, supported Lara. And then, when Aurangzeb won, just like Diya Rani, incidentally, the house of Jaipur was of Congress. Half of it Congress, half BJP. Now entire BJP, because some BJP is there. So Jai Singh was with Shah Jahan, then when Shah Jahan lost, so he became a prominent noble of Aurangzeb, gained the highest mansab, 8,000. Not only that, he was made the Subadar of the Deccan. The same Suba where Prince Aurangzeb was posted before becoming the king. A prestigious appointment. Mirza Raja Jai. Not, his introduction doesn't stop here. Shivaji was not defeated by Aurangzeb. Shivaji was defeated at Battle of Purandar by Mirza Raja Jai Singh. Still his introduction doesn't stop. He forced Shivaji to accept the mansabdari of the Mughals. 5,000. Forced him to come to Agra. And at Agra, Shivaji was placed in the Haveli of Mirza Raja Jai Singh. Right? तो हवेली तो है. आप तो कह रहे थे कि जबरदस्ती कैप्चर कर लिया था, कुछ नहीं मिला था, हम आवाज नहीं उठा पाए थे. This is what Diya Rani has said. Mughals were so powerful, our ancestors could not, raise their voice. But the same ancestor had a Haveli where Shivaji was placed. And since the last 400 years, that is what you write, that Jai Singh actually helped Shivaji escape. Although it is not a fake, but this is such things you are creating about him. So Haveli was there, possibly the one which was granted to him by Shah Jahan in view of the land which he had taken here. And then one of the other ancestors of Diya Rani was another Jai Singh, Savai Jai Singh of the 18th century. Around 1720s, Savai Jai Singh was the Subadar of Agra. And during his Subadari, they were added by Syed his construction works as the Subadar. And there, in this map, there is an entire area which is known as Jaisinghpura, which is there, that is drawn. My question is that by 1720s, the political power of the Mughals had been reduced to great extent. And when you are the Subadar, and when you are making the plan, when you are showing your property on it, why don't you mention the temple or the land which had been forcibly taken by you? No mention. No mention of that. Very proudly making the Taj Mahal, yes, here. Showing the Taj Mahal. Could have written that this was the place where my Haveli existed and it was a temple or whatnot. Bas, ek naam uska. Another thing which is being said about the Taj is that Taj is a wrong name because the name of the queen was Mumtaz, not Taj. If you can't pronounce, who's at fault? They say Mahal. You see, they are not talking about a tomb, they are talking about a Mahal, a palace. That is why, in yesterday's lecture, I talked about why every person dealing with medieval India should at least read some basics of Persian, the language of the source. Mahal does not only mean a palace, it's an honorific title which was given to the prominent women. Noor Mahal. Noor Jahan was given the title Noor Mahal. Our sources are full of information that Mumtaz Mahal was known as Mumtaz Mahal. She was never called by her own original name. That was never the tradition under the Mughals. She was known as Mumtaz Mahal. And it is from Mumtaz Mahal that it was shortened in popular usage to Taj Mahal. Actually, the name in the Persian sources, whether it's Badshah Nama or the latter period sources, all Persian sources, none of them mentions Taj Mahal at all. They all mention Rawza-e Munawwara, the illumined tomb. No Persian source. They say that why did the Mughals call it as the Taj Mahal? Oh well, they never called it as a Taj Mahal. It's you and me who are calling it the Taj Mahal. The Mughal sources always mention as, so these are the things which I have already referred to you. If there was a temple, if there was something which existed, it should have been pointed out, but there is actually no reference to it. Now let us see some other things about the Taj. Taj is built on a plan which is very unique. We do not find that plan before the coming of the Mughals to India. If any of you are the student of architecture, you would know that from day one down to the period of Firoz Shah Tughlaq, generally the tombs were square. It was only in one tomb before the Mughals, Khane-Jahan Tarangani's tomb at Delhi, that an octagonal shape was given. That was the first. Never before it in India. The first building on a plan which has been used at the Taj, the first building on that plan was the Maqbara of Humayun's tomb. That plan is known as Hasht Bahisht. In English we call it non-apartheid plan. Hasht Bahisht means, Hasht means 8, Bahisht means heavens. In English, non-apartheid, nine, partite, partitions. In Persian it is 8, English, go but look at the plan. You find a central chamber surrounded by 8 other chambers which are revolving all around it. The corner chambers octagonal, the side chambers, they are rectangular. Right? The corner octagonal chambers, they are double-storied. The side chambers, they are flat-roofed. The central octagonal chamber is surmounted with a dome. This was an entirely new plan which never ever we find throughout India. Anywhere. What to talk about a temple or a mosque or a khanqa or anything. It never happened before. First in Humayun's tomb, in certain other buildings, and ultimately the finest form is at the Taj Mahal. You see all the buildings which you find, which are made in that plan. So how come it was an ancient building when the plan itself came during the 16th century? The plan itself was never there before that. Show me one example throughout the Indian subcontinent. Kahin mil jaye, I would accept that possibly Taj would have been a development of that. Let us also deal, I know these days they are showing you each and every newspaper and channel that beneath the white marble dome, there you see the temple. Peep into the doors, you will find the temple remain. Why do you peep? I'll show you. There's no need to peep. I haven't been there inside. They say that it was. Why is it always been closed? It's not always closed. It's been closed for since a few years. I have gone there. Better. Let us start with the very foundations. The Mughal sources, for example, there was a poet and a writer, Abu Talib Karim. He elaborates on how the foundations of the Mughal buildings were rested. Have you ever seen the building of a bridge? Wells are dug. They are filled with concrete or certain such structure, and on top of that a pillar is raised, and then the bridge is made. So that because there is sandy soil and the flowing river, so that the foundations stands erect. And that is what happened at buildings like Taj. That is what Abdul Hamid Lahori is telling us, how the foundations were made, and you can see it here. This is a view from the side of the river. Red sandstone. There is a massive wall with a number of doors. Modi ji ke liye leading into the temple. On top of that, a white marble building, again a height. Just imagine where would be the grave of Shah Jahan. Have you seen the actual grave of Shah Jahan? You go down a number of steps, but those steps only go down the first level, the marble one. I think probably he is still hanging out there on top of the temple. Okay, it should be all deeper down. So what they did was that actually there were two platform buildings which were. with a large series of rooms. If this is the sort of site, so there would be double-storied rooms on this side, and ultimately here there would be no rooms, and this would be just one. So rooms towards this side. Okay. You have to make the building on top straight, right? And these are, you can see the doors, and then on the top there. Again, the same thing. Look at the height of the red sandstone platform, and look at the height of the marble platform. So much height has been given so that the building stands like this. So नीचे क्या है? मंदिर. See, it is visible here. Given a number of slides. If you forget one, you see the other. The whole structure is now, if you take the aerial view, these platforms are very clear from the aerial perspective. Actually, rectangular platforms on which the whole structure is built. You view from the river, there is a platform. You river from the side of the garden, it is on the garden. You understand this? And these are the plans which have been made and are available in any of the books of architecture. No mystery. All these rooms are shown there. You see the depth where they say the grave is. I believe the grave is much lower down. But whatever. So you can see, possibly, this whole side is given to rooms, chambers. This is how the foundation of the structure is built. Wells filled with teak wood and all. You can find here the double series of arches. Arch, what is an arch? It's a roof which is load bearing. You must have gone to old ruins of buildings. Wherever there is a trevated roof, in the old structures the roof would fall because all the weight is coming like this. If there is an arch, the weight radiates all around. So it's almost weightless. Right? So if you, for example, go to Fatehpur Sikri, large water tanks, they are all raised on the tops of, arched floors, so that the weight of the water would not make it, go down. So this is how. Another view. Now this I have taken from India Today, published only 2 years back. These are works where the artist of India Today has not paid it. It is the surveyors of the site. It is from them that the India Today team had taken this. Look at how at the lowest level are the wells. On the top of that you have platforms, and on the platforms is the actual structure. And each platform is having arches. And within the arches are those enclosed rooms, chambers. To fill up those rooms would have been very costly. So you just take an arch, leave the room vacant, they can be used for any purpose. See again, wells, soil, stone and lime, rubble masonry, brick masonry, levels of that. It's such a, possibly the size of the Taj is lesser than the, actual length, the depth of the foundation itself. It's only then that this building is going to stand. Drawn from the book of Edapod. See, she has given a section of those chambers. Very much there. all surveyed, all seen, nothing very special. The plan of those chambers and the photograph. So to say that it's a mystery, the chambers are never opened, we don't know the court should allow us to go. Actually, there's no harm in that. 3-4 days in a press conference, a number of newspaper and TV journalists asked me, what is your opinion? Should these rooms be open for inspection? I said no harm. No harm because of 2 things. 1, there's nothing to hide. 2, there's nothing safe. They are foundation chambers. 3rd, they were closed recently. I was mature enough to remember that I had entered. I entered these chambers in 1972. 72 or 73. But if you go to any site, historical site, being maintained by the ASI, you will find this. All those chambers and things which are either underground or somewhere on the top, where anything can happen, they usually close it. In Jaipur City Palace Museum, the house of Diya, Princess Diya, there is a chamber known as a chamber, Poti Khana, I forget the name, the chamber, which has beautiful paintings of the temple cities of India. But it's always at the, for example, Saket is there, Ayodhya is there, Banaras is there, Mathura is there with all its temples drawn on the walls. But it's always under lock and key. So should one ask that they were under lock and key because there was a court case going around Ayodhya and they did not want to show whether in the map of Ayodhya Ram Janambhoomi is shown or not? Incidentally, it's not shown. So was it closed because of that? No, it was closed by the ASI for preservation. All of us are sitting in this room and all of us are breathing. Carbon dioxide comes out and it harms the paintings and structures inside. Marble is very fragile. It gets harmed. And that is one of the reasons. The second reason is, I still remember, it was again in 73 or something like that, that till then the Qutub Minar was open for you to climb. But an incident happened. People, inside, a stampede took place, number of people fell down. Atalji gave a speech in the parliament in which he accused the ASI like anything and said that they are the killers. Why are they not closing the stairs? The stairs were closed on the insistence of Atalji, who was the leader of opposition then. Till date they are closed. They are not closed because this Qutub Minar was a minaret of some temple and there were idols inside and the government did not want us to see those idols. The foundations of the Taj are very much there. If you go to the ASI, there is no need to go to the Supreme Court. Go to the ASI, tell them that you are going there for a study trip. Abakosh did that. We did that. You will get a permission. You can do it. But at the moment, we also remember what they did at Ayodhya. Who does not know that one night certain idols were planted there? Everyone knows the name of the person who planted it. He gave interviews in which he claimed that yes, I did plant it. But Ram Lalla to us appeared miraculously. So what is the guarantee that some other Lalla might not one day be implanted there? And that is why the hesitancy of the court also to give permission. If there is a permission which is given, it should be actually supervised. Remember that only yesterday in Banaras, the Supreme Court gave you the permission to go and survey that disputed structure. But it was all to be, videographed. Why? Videography is no survey. Videography would not show you whether it was converted or not. The videography is for the culprits. That you don't do anything strange. So there is no harm in getting, those underground chambers inspected, but it should be inspected in a right fashion so that a new controversy might not arise. There are many such myths which are being made. I had only one day, so I talked about the Taj. Had your Salim Saab invited me for a second lecture, and had I been staying here, or probably the next time I would be talking about Qutub Minar, because that is also in focus. And possibly by next year there would be many more monuments which would be under focus. Remember, in Indian architecture, मंदिर बहुत देर में बना है. पहले बुद्धिस्ट आर्किटेक्चर है, स्तूपा विहारा वो बना है, उससे हमने मंदिर सीखा है. और मंदिरों के कुछ एस्पेक्ट हमें मस्जिद में भी मिलते हैं. एंड in one of my articles I have tried to label that the Mughal mosques were in fact Templar mosques, drawing inspiration from the Hindu temples. You see, wherever one lives, one always, takes on the tradition of the people amongst whom one is survived. It's give and take. Naturally, one school of architecture is going to influence the other school of architecture if it is being created in a space where there are two traditions. Mughal architecture, whether it was a temple or a tomb, was similarly built in both these styles. Remember that generally the architect, the plan maker of these buildings used to be Central Asian Iranian, but the actual builder, the one who actually executed that design, was always the indigenous man who had been trained in the various indigenous local traditions. And that is why all these structures, at the time when just the last sentence, Salim, I have taken much time, all of you must have heard that Humayun's Maqbara was renovated by Aga Khan. The architect of Aga Khan Memorial Trust, his name is Rajiv Satyam, kya naam hai uska? Ratish Tanda. He is the chief architect. He gave interviews that, I was very faithful to the Mughal design. I interviewed the people from Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan and brought people from there, and they have rebuilt it. It's original. Baba, Kazakhstan or Uzbekistan and those stans, had they this knowledge, why did not Humayun's tomb exist in their land? Why was it built in India? They could, Uzbekistan and Central Asian people could never conceive such a building in their territory. It was made by us, the Indians. If you want to duplicate what the authentic tradition were, ask the Indians themselves. Don't go outside. Right? So all these Mughal structures, as the Mughal rule itself, was the Indian thing. It was made by the Indians. Design might have been given by anyone. The material which was used was Indian. The people who constructed was Indian. The plans with which they came up were heavily influenced by the Indian plans. And that is the uniqueness of the Mughal structures, whether it is the Taj itself. They are all built on this land known as Hindustan. They belong to this place, and please do not go beyond the border to try to understand them. Thank you very much. I am ready to have any questions if you have, not necessarily only